I worked at a gas station at the time. I know that's the typical setting for this kind of situation. I was sitting in the booth counting the cigarette packs when an old red Corolla pulled up. I could hear through the car doors loud electronic music playing. The windows were vibrating too. The lady inside rolled down the window and handed me $20 for gas. I told her to turn the car off. That's how fires are started. She said she wouldn't and that she didn't really need gas anyway. She had a weird accent I couldn't really place. She asked how to get to town. I thought that was kind of weird. This gas station wasn't in the middle of nowhere. It was on a suburban street near a highway. I told her she was in a town. Could she be more specific? That's when I noticed two other people in the car. I couldn't really make out what they looked like, even with the lights from the gas station. I told her I didn't know what she meant, and she sped off, like broke the speed limit. I went back to my shelter and finished cigarette inventory. I was watching football highlights on my phone when another car pulled up, also blasting music. The guy inside looked a lot older than the last lady, but he had the same accent. He also asked how to get to town. I told him the same thing I told the last lady. He was already in a town. Which one did he want? He just drove away. That kept happening all night. People of all ages with weird accents. It honestly sounded kind of phony, like every European accent mixed with some kind of Chinese. They kept asking for the way into town, never naming it, and speeding off without getting gas. My shift went till 2 a.m. that night. I hated the night shift. I was on my third Red Bull when another car blasting music pulled in. Where were all these people coming from? They rolled down the window and I preemptively told the guy he needed to be more specific and tell me what town he was looking for, and that he would need to turn his car off. He hesitated, said he had somewhere to be in that weird accent. I told him I couldn't help him if he didn't turn his car off. I just rolled my eyes. I was so annoyed with these randos blowing through my gas station. He said he just needed some gas and information. I told him I couldn't help him while the car was on. He waited a second, then turned off the car. The loud electronic music went off instantly and there was this weird shimmer around the car. It was like when it's really hot out and there's that kind of waviness about the sidewalk. When it fell away, the guy told me not to look in. Just give him gas and answer his question. When you work night shift at a gas station, you learn to just follow directions like that. Whatever's going on is not your business. Just pump the gas, take the cash, and tell them to have a nice day. I filled up the tank and said I don't know what they were talking about. They would need to be more specific and say what town they were looking for. I closed up the gas tank and said have a nice day. Then I looked up. It was totally by accident, just a reflex really. I looked in the car. The guy, I don't even think it was a guy. It looked like some kind of lizard. It had scaly skin. I could see it had a huge mouth with barely hidden teeth. I turned the car back on and music started blaring again. Then it was that guy again. I don't know if it saw me. I was pretty obvious. My mouth was open and my eyes were wide. It thanked me and drove off. The next day I got a news alert on my phone. In the next town over, a family went missing. Apparently there were several light complaints from neighbors, and when the cops went to check what was going on, nobody opened the door. They went inside and the house was empty. There were half-eaten dinners and it even looked like someone had stopped changing a baby's diaper halfway through. I don't know what the hell that was. I live alone. I like it. People are too annoying, too needy. My cat Mortimer, though, he just kind of vibes. He comes around sometimes to be pet, then goes back to minding his own business. I moved to the city a couple years ago and made 3 friends. That was enough for me. I spent most of my time reading, watching TV, or making rugs. Making rugs was a recent hobby, but I've really fallen in love with it. I had just gotten off work and was sitting at my loom. Every push of the needle through the tarp was relaxing another muscle in my back, but that was ruined when Mortimer started yowling. He was staring at a corner in the kitchen. I yelled at him to knock it off. He was messing up my flow. He just kept screaming at the corner. There's a lot of urban legends about cats' perception. They can sense evil, see ghosts, yada yada yada. I didn't think Mortimer was really smart enough for all that. I figured he was making a play for some food. Usually he's not so annoying about being hungry, but cat personalities change a lot. I filled his bowl up and went back to my weaving. He stopped screaming and started eating. I definitely preferred the soft crunching to the loud meowing. I made some good progress when I decided to wind down. I showered, brushed my teeth, watched a little TV, then shut off the light. I woke up to more screaming. I went to the kitchen, barely able to see. It was Mortimer. He was in the same spot, yelling at the wall. I was so mad I almost kicked him. Instead, I picked him up and took him to bed with me. He was fighting to get out of my arms. When I laid down, I held him beside me and pet him until he fell asleep. He finally did an hour later. I spent the whole next day groggy and exhausted. Don't ask me what happened at work because I don't remember. I went home and passed out for what I hoped would be a long nap. But it wasn't, because again, Mortimer was yelling at the wall. I didn't know what to do. I put out his favorite toys. I tempted him with treats. I sprayed him with catnip. Nothing worked. He was still in the same spot, just surrounded by toys and high out of his gourd now, still screaming. I just decided to try to sleep through it, and I did. I woke up at 2 a.m. with Mortimer still screaming. There was a weird blue light coming from the kitchen, too. I thought I shut everything off when I went to sleep. I went to turn off whatever I had left on and hopefully calm Mortimer down. In the kitchen, there was a blue glow. I couldn't even see the corner anymore. Mortimer was louder than I'd ever heard him. I was positive the neighbors were going to say something. I scooped up Mortimer and he yelped. The blue light went away. The next morning, I called the landlord. He said it was probably a neighbor's floodlight or something. He recommended a blackout curtain. Typical useless landlord. I went to work on 3 espressos and came home to Mortimer still in the corner yowling. The landlord texted me soon after. One of the neighbors lodged a noise complaint. Great. That night, I didn't go to bed. I decided to stay up with Mortimer and see what was going on for myself. I sat in a chair next to him and watched the corner of the kitchen. He was meowing and started fully screaming when the blue light started glowing. The landlord was wrong. It wasn't a neighbor's floodlight. It didn't come from outside at all. It came from the corner. I was stunned. Then a blue man walked out of the light. He was covered in feathers and had a beak and huge black eyes. I covered my mouth so I wouldn't scream. "Do not be afraid," he said without moving his beak. "I am here to tell you to be wary of the blonde man. He will come, and if you are not careful, he will take you like he has taken many others. He does not seem a menace or a monster, and he brings gifts where he goes. But be wary. His heart is empty and is hungry for blood." Then the Birdman disappeared. The light never came back, and Mortimer went back to normal. I looked it up. If you believe insane people on the internet, these bird people aren't from our planet, or even our dimension. They show up to warn us of terrible things, then they go back to whatever dimension they came from. I thought maybe it was exhaustion that made me see it. I'm not crazy like the people on those message boards. Then I got a new neighbor. He was scrawny, quiet, nice, and blonde. He showed up at my door with an apple pie, nothing fancy, but it smelled amazing. He said he moved in and was just trying to be a good neighbor. I haven't touched the pie, and I'm counting the days until my lease is up. I sometimes worry about my grandma. She's almost 90 and stubborn as the day is long. She refuses to live with any of us or have any live-in help. Once she pushed an old fridge across her garage because it blocked a vent for her heater. She's just self-directed like that. She's all alone in her ranch house. I try to visit her a lot, and I bring very complicated meals I make with the cheapest ingredients I can get. Gotta keep her weight up. One day I visited her and she was walking better than usual. She didn't need her cane and her posture was great. I asked how she was feeling and said she seemed to be moving better than she had in a while. She said she had made some new friends who gave her some folk medicine tricks. They worked wonders, she said. That was strange. She lived on a ranch with the closest neighbors several miles away. I brushed it off, thinking that maybe her mind was starting to go. That bummed me out. A couple days later, I went back with another complicated meal. She had actually one-upped me. She made me beef Wellington and pesto pasta with a roasted garlic appetizer. I asked how she had the energy to do all this. She said her new friends had been helping her out. Her joints, she said, felt 40 years younger. She said she might go for a run that night. A run? She had a hip replacement a couple months ago. I told her that wasn't a good idea. To which she said, "I can do what I want. Worry about yourself." Unusually fiery for my grandma. I decided to visit the next day to see if I could meet these friends and check on how my grandma was doing mentally. When I got there, she was doing cartwheels in front of the house. I ran out of the car to catch her, but she didn't need me. She actually springboarded over me, making me fall into the dirt and look stupid. She laughed and told me to come inside. She had made a pot roast. Next to the dining room table was a near-finished painting. I asked who the painting was of. She told me it was her father and that she had been working on it all day. It was incredible, almost like a photograph. I asked where she learned to paint like that, but I knew the answer: her new friends. I asked if I could meet them, but she said they were very shy. They only came out at night. I went again the day after that. I noticed my grandmother had brown roots under her gray hair, as if it were growing in that way. She also lost the old lady croak in her voice and was sounding younger. She told me she had bad news. Her friends wanted to take her on a trip. She would be gone for a long time. That really worried me. I said I was staying the night. She said no, but I refused to leave. I put my car keys above her kitchen cabinet and took a guest room. That night, my grandma wouldn't speak a word to me. She just packed everything she said she would need for her trip, got on her best coat, and sat in her bed. I asked when her friends were coming. She said soon. She had a sad look in her eyes, but she smiled. She told me she would miss me and that the painting of her father was mine. I tried to stay up to make sure she was okay, but I fell asleep in a lazy boy. I woke up to the house being flooded with light. I called for my grandma, but she didn't respond. I ran to her room, but her and her suitcases were gone. The light dimmed and went away. I don't know where she is or what happened. I miss her, and I worry.